really ask yourself, am I having serious signs of stress? Am I getting headaches constantly? Can I not sleep? You know, am I always irritable at home? Am I always complaining to my friends and family about my job? Is this what is, and I'm talking about seriously complaining, to the degree that you don't listen to anybody else, you're talking about yourself all the time. You know, is this taking up my life? If you don't have any life at all, other than the problems of your job, the reason that resume is up to date is because it's time for you to move along. Stop trying to fix the unfixable. Realize when you have to cut your losses. If you've only been there for a couple of months, you may want to suck it up for a year so you don't look like a job hopper. You know, that's another thing where you talk to somebody you respect who's a little further along in their career and ask them what they think about that. On the other hand, if somebody comes to you and says, you know, we're doing this and we think you'd be the perfect person, so, you know, if you ever think about moving, say, you know what, I'm reluctant to leave because I just got here, but boy, this is too good an opportunity to pass up. So then you're still a decent person with ethics and you move on. But you really move on, you know? Don't try to fix the unfixable. The other thing is, if you're having problems with a difficult boss, memos to the file. You write a memo to the file, essentially, which is your folder in your locked part of your office, in which you put down, on this date, this happened. Just factual. It's not Dear Diary, you know? It's not, and I felt like crying, and I was so humiliated, and so on and so forth. You don't want something that sounds like, you know, a bodice-ripping novel. I mean, really what you want is something that just sounds like, factually, this is what occurred. I prepared the material, I had it reviewed by so-and-so, I brought it in, and it was a situation in which I was, in fact, humiliated in front of my colleagues because the following occurred. Blah, 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 blah. That's it. Why are you doing that? Because you could reach a point where you have to decide whether or not you are going to sue for hostile climate. Should you ever sue? That's a big question. Now, I'm going to give you the ethical answer, and I'm going to give you the realistic answer to that. There was a woman who used to be here at the University of Rhode Island who was a very, very good civil rights attorney, excellent civil rights attorney. She moved to the North for personal reasons, and she, on one occasion, when I was involved with something where there were 24 plaintiffs and so on and so forth, it was a really messy situation. And she said to me, when I brought it forward because I thought it was the only ethical choice I could possibly make, she said, it's absolutely right that you do this, but you need to know that you are the one who will pay the price for this. The person who's involved in the wrongdoing will probably get off, and you will probably suffer the consequences of having brought this forward. And I said, so be it, I can't not do this. You know, I mean, I really couldn't. I could not live with myself if I didn't do what I did, okay? We all have a threshold, and we all have to decide what that threshold is, but have that conversation with yourself. Can I live with myself if I do or I don't? You know, because, in fact, she was absolutely right. She was absolutely 100% correct in that situation, okay, without going into a lot of details. So you have to recognize that you've got to balance the ethical with the practical. And you've also got to balance it in terms of the work-life balance thing. You know, how is this going to impact my life, the big picture life? Friends, family, work, profession, my passion for things, you know? How is that all going to come into play? And how is that going to work out for me and all those people with whom I'm interconnected? Because this no man is an island thing is absolutely true. Things that happen to you will impact all of those people with whom you are connected. whether it be parents or you know, partners or children or whoever it is, you know, neighbors, you name it. It does impact lots of people. Your co-workers, the list goes on. You also have to be very careful about judging other people about how they make decisions to react in that situation, because they may have things at stake you have no idea about. They may have a sick relative they're supporting and they have to suck it up. Because if they leave, they're going to lose certain kinds of things that allow them to help that individual. You know, there are things that we're never aware of, so never make judgments about people that way, okay? More common than we'd like to think, where these kinds of, the issue of the personal relationship is one, and when you look at the leadership styles, pay attention to that in terms of who is more likely to become friendly with or have you know, the right-hand man or woman type thing, or who's likely to have a much more embracing kind of culture, you know. I mean, there are guru leaders, you know, these people who just insist that, and that's the Jim Jones mentality, you know, it is creating a quasi-utopian society in which you're saying to people, all believe with me, you know, and you're creating this sense of a transformative environment, but it is one that ultimately the leader is testing his power. Now, that can be a very positive experience if you have a leader who's not, again, sociopathic, who's not trying to test his or her power, you know. It's also very important to recognize that women in positions of power can be the worst toward other women, because their attitude is, I had to fight my way to get to this point, they damn well better fight too, because otherwise, you know, they're not. It's the same thing. The American Medical Association did this whole thing, I want to say this was almost 15 years, 20 years ago maybe, where they tested the whole thing where they made doctors, interns, go through this process of the rite of passage of you're on duty for 48 or 72 hours, you know, so that you have a cot, but you can go sleep for a few minutes, but if something happens, you've got to be up and at it, and so on and so forth. And they basically were looking at the issue of how effective a learning tool is this. Now, to some degree, you can understand that there is value in finding a way to push through when there's an emergency. You know, you can't just say, I'm really tired, you know, when there are people bleeding out all around you. You can't do it, you know. But what's the value in trying to create the illusion of that level of high energy situations all the time? What's the value in that? And what they found was that, in fact, people were making very bad decisions. There were a lot more incidents of malpractice, and that the learning curve was significantly depreciated. And so consequently, the learning during the intern period was much less than it should have been, simply because of this whole thing. So what did, after the AMA came out with the report, what did everybody decide to do? The same thing. They said, oh no, we're going to keep doing it because we had to do it. It was the rite of passage thing. You know, and we have to be very careful about that, all of us, that we don't insist upon a particular thing that people will go through simply because we had to go through it. You know, that doesn't necessarily make it valuable at all.